welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi, how are y'all doing? Hopefully well. I am, of course, your host, Marcus Nez, and today I've got quite a few games to talk about, and probably nothing else, because I can't think of anything too much to say. The games, though, before I get into any tangents, include, etc., GRAVEN, FROGUN Encore, Teardown, specifically the Folkrace DLC, which just came out, Lords of Exile, This Means Warp, Devil Inside Us, Roots of Evil, and Spellcats Auto Card Tactics. Lots of stuff there. Right? So in my movie watching, to give you all an update on that, still with the Psych, with exercise. Psych is great. Love Psych. The amazing thing about Psych is that the chemistry between James and... is it Dule? I'm not even sure how you pronounce his name. Hill? Not Sean and Spencer. His name's Sean Spencer. Sean and Gus. Their chemistry is so good right from the start. It's the kind of thing where you watch a show or you watch a movie and you see two actors playing off each other and everything seems so natural that you'd believe them if they said they were best friends in real life for their whole life. They embody their characters so well that you just feel like they're not acting. This is just them. They've been friends all their lives, just like on the show. That's why that's why it comes so natural. But that's not the case. It's the same with the Before trilogy and how natural Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy seem together. I'm sure there are plenty of other examples if I thought about it. But in some of my recent watching stuff that I forgot to mention, there was a point where I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do, instead of a MCU rewatch or something super large, why don't I focus it in a bit more? Why don't I just do a Batman rewatch? And I was going to watch all of the Batman movies starting with 1989, not including the Batman the movie with Adam West, because if I was going to watch that, I would watch that after rewatching the series, which I'm thinking about maybe doing after Psych. But after watching the first Batman, I immediately stopped watching more because I think the atmosphere and the score and the vibe, all of that in 1989 is great. But I don't love the movie. It's okay. I enjoy Michael Keaton, but a lot of that comes from nostalgia. He's one of my favorite Batmen, Bruce Waynes, because of that. But I don't know how great he actually is. But I think Jack Nicholson is a pretty awful Joker. And I don't even care about any changes to the backstory of Joker and his origin and all of that, because I'm not a diehard comic fan, so it doesn't really matter to me. And I'm always fine with trying different things and not just being a straight one-to-one adaptation of something. However, his characterization of the Joker is just not good. It's bad. Not a fan of it. So that kind of halted me immediately in this attempted rewatch of all the Batman movies. Just the live action ones. So it would be that one, then Returns, Forever, and Robin. Then the 3 Nolans and the Batman. I wouldn't count, because there's not really a standalone, properly standalone Snyder DCU Batman movie. You have Batman v Superman, but that feels more if I was going to do a watch of the Snyder things. So, yeah, and I think it's a choice, and I'll give them something for making the choice, but part of what I really don't like about Returns is how disgusting Danny DeVito is as the Penguin. I don't like that version of the Penguin at all. So Tim Burton and villains, not so great. However, your more anti-villains, or whatever you call her, anti-hero, chaotic neutral, whatever. Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. Fantastic. Maybe the best character in either Burton Batman movie. But yeah, watch some new stuff. I don't know if I want to talk about any of that right here, right now. I was thinking about, in the way I talk about movies, I usually try to, if I want to recommend something, avoid spoilers. But I am of the mind that any real talk about a movie in any way is kind of spoilery. Because if I were to say, I really like this movie, it reminds me a lot of this other movie, that's already a spoiler. If you hear that one movie is like another movie, then you have the thought of that other movie in your mind, and that gives you some kind of impression of either the vibe, the story, what to expect in some way or another. And that's going to be spoilery. If I saying I like something could be spoilery, but I don't think that's far enough. But I think once you get into comparisons, you're already in spoiler territory. So the way I think, if I don't do a standalone show, and I don't think I would do a standalone show for movies, because I don't think that would actually be particularly long. Unless I say, but the thing about doing an anime show is that's, even though it's not, it feels like a more specific topic, but with an anime show, I have the perfect title for it. All right. I can't not do something with that. It's just there, waiting for me to bring it back, because it's so fucking good. It's the greatest thing I've ever created in my life, is the title for the anime podcast. So I can't not do it. I don't have a movie title podcast. My one movie podcast title thought was, Do You Even Plex? As a play on, do you even lift? But instead of lift, it would be flex. And instead of flex, it would be plex, because I like me my plex. But that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't inherently mean I'm going to be talking about movies and current things. That just sounds like something I'm going to be talking about fucking plex. And hey, did you see the update to Plex? There's a hotfix. And now, if you sometimes have issues where a poster doesn't load correctly, now it does. Isn't that cool? The end. That's not going to be exciting for anyone. But if I talk about movies, I think in the future it would just be, okay, I like this. I recommend it. Now I'm going to talk about it. If you don't want to be spoiled, get the fuck out of here. Because no matter what I say, it's going to be somewhat spoilery. I don't know what to watch, though. I never know what to watch. I did some, not catching up exactly, but with the Criterion sale coming up in about a week, I think it's not the first day of July when it starts. I think it's around the 4th, not the 4th. Not on the 4th of July. But I think it might be the first Sunday or something like that. Not the first, but I could be wrong. But I don't think I am. I think it's some day specifically in July, and then November. It might be all of November. But with that just around the corner, I was looking at what had recently come out, what is coming out in July, what's coming out later in the month or later in the year for the November sale, just to see what I would want, not want, and was able to knock off a few things that were on the bubble. And then watched a few A24 things and la-di-da-di-da-di-da. So, is there any news to talk about? No, not that I saw that was of any importance. There was a Nintendo Direct, of course, that I didn't watch last week because I was recording as it was airing. That was fine. I think a lot of people not hyped it up, but after the fact, a lot of people acted like it was the greatest thing ever because there were a few really good announcements. But that doesn't mean a few really good announcements doesn't make up for being overall one of the worst directs I've ever seen, where so much of it was crap I couldn't care less about, and I don't know how anyone could care about any of this. That fucking Looney Tunes sports game, that looked, oh my god, there was so much bad in that direct. And then you get here's a new Zelda game where you're playing as Zelda, which looks cool. Hope it runs well on the Switch 1. And look, we finally see Metroid Prime 4. Great. I think they at least said next year, but okay, if it's about fucking time. Whoop-de-fucking-do. We didn't see that much anyway either. They look nice, sure, but who knows? Who knows? And then not Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi. I don't know what those games are, so have fun with that. So those are the three big announcements, really. So, not to take anything away from them. It's just the rest of the show was just so bad. It was 40 minutes, and 30 minutes of it was really bad. Really, really bad. Hey, look, we added basketball to fucking Switch Sports, whatever the hell it is. Great. I'm so glad I'm watching this. Whatever, let's just get on to what I've been playing. I feel like I hit a brick wall this week. The truth of the matter is, I just want to get back to playing System Shock. And I can't get back to it until I record this podcast. So that's why I'm recording it on Tuesday. And I'm talking about these games. Starting with GRAVEN. This is an action-adventure first-person shooter where you are playing as a priest, and it falls into that kind of boomer shooter retro space of having those pixely visuals, but high fidelity pixely visuals, giving you that classic vibe of Doom and more later stuff than Doom. But it's in that similar space, that vein. And it's just incredibly fucking boring. I played it for about an hour and a half, and I did not enjoy a single second of it. There's a whole lot of box smashing and barrel smashing, zombie killing, some skeleton warrior killing, some flying monster killing, some beast killing, weird old monster killings. But it's just so boring. It looks nice. It has some kind of story going on, but it lost me immediately because for me, I find it really hard to engage with the story, to pay attention when it's delivered via narration over essentially a slideshow. I need something more immersive than that, because if I'm just being spoken to while some visuals are happening on screen and not even in a cutscene, I find it so hard to focus on that. It's so unengaging. Whereas to compare it to System Shock, that throws you right into the perspective of the hacker, and you have characters that are speaking, but they're speaking to you and looking at you, and you can look around the environment, get a bit of environmental storytelling and stuff of that nature, which is more engaging because I feel like I'm already in the shoes of the character. Whereas if I'm being spoken to, it's just in one ear and out the other. But the combat sucks. You start off with just your staff that you could smash enemies with, and then you will get a spell, a fire spell, which is seemingly only for puzzles because it's useless in combat. A sword that doesn't feel all that much more powerful than your staff, even though it should be. A crossbow that is the worst feeling crossbow I've ever used in a shooter. It's so unsatisfying, feels incredibly weak. You'd think that maybe it might give off some kind of stake gun from Painkiller or something. It might be a weapon that you feel some impact from, but it just, the game is competently made enough, but it is boring to explore the world. The story didn't grab me, and the gameplay is incredibly dull. So, one of the worst games of this ilk I've played in recent memory. Because I've played quite a few of them, and I can't remember the names of a lot of them. Last one was, of course, Phantom Fury, but that's... There was one where it was similar-ish. I don't know if I was playing a priest or a mage, but there's something that was similar that I didn't love, but in comparison is much better. GRAVEN is just so boring. Then FROGUN Encore is a platformer that is a follow-up to FROGUN, a game I did not get a chance to play, but I got a code for this, so I checked this out. And I don't like it. The mechanics of the game, besides doing a lot of jumping around and platforming in that way, is using your FROGUN to either grab enemies and shoot them around, grab pots, maybe a flaming pot, explosive pot, and use that to destroy part of the environment to open up a path, and using it to reach areas you wouldn't be able to otherwise. So if there's a long gap, you shoot it at the wall on the opposite end, and it'll pull you across this long gap you couldn't double jump across. And that's a lot of what you're doing navigating these spaces. There's no worry about lives or anything like that. The game just tracks how many deaths you have, and that'll go towards your final score when you finish a level. But what I don't like about it is that it is a fixed camera platformer. And with that comes a lot of frustration and a lot of deaths due to the camera's positions and lack of clarity in where you are where certain things are. You die immediately if you fall into water. Annoying. Even if it's just seemingly a body of water that would be up to your neck, you'll die. I understand in these bigger moving bodies of water, sure, fine, whatever. But your name's FROGUN, or the game's FROGUN. I don't know what your name is. But frogs don't die in water. I know that doesn't make sense. No, frogs not dying, that makes sense, but why does that matter in this term? Whatever. But the game, even though it feels pretty responsive, I don't think the FROGUN itself is super reliable, using it to try and navigate the space and move across gaps. And one of the most frustrating things about it is that you can manually aim by holding down a button. It'll bring up a little line of sight targeting thing to aim. But even if you're manually aiming, if there's something that the FROGUN can auto lock onto, it'll shoot towards that thing instead of where you're aiming. And I find that very annoying, because the whole point of me manual aiming is so that you won't do that. But it's a game I wish I enjoyed more. I went through the first area, defeated the first boss, and just wasn't having a super great time with it. So that's unfortunate. The Teardown Folkrace DLC is cool. It basically turns Teardown into a racing game. So the way the DLC is structured is that, and Teardown is a game that came out a while ago. I got it very early on in its PC development and played a little bit there, but not a whole lot. And then with this DLC coming out, I ended up getting the code for the console version because I was really curious about the console version, how well it ran. Runs well, playing on Xbox. It defaults to performance mode, so I don't know how it looks good still. But I didn't go and check the fidelity mode to see how that looks or runs. There was something I think in there to toggle 120 hertz mode, which is crazy. Because I would not expect a game like this, with all the physics and everything, to be able to run in 120 on these consoles. But it may be a 120 only if you have VRR capabilities. I didn't check it because there's so few 120 games that the amount of fiddling I have to do with my setup to play them that way doesn't make it. There's no point in changing things here and there ever so occasionally for a game that has a 120 mode, and 60 is good enough. 60 is good enough. I'd rather have, and I can't really use VRR because it's glitchy, it's buggy with my capture setup. But Teardown, if you don't know what that is, it's a heist game essentially, where you'll have an objective, and then with this game that is all about destruction, organic destruction, where everything is made of voxels, very, very tiny little voxels. Looks beautiful, such a great look to the game. But you can basically destroy most things. And then you'll have an objective, and you'll have to figure out a way to do it. And you're free to use your creative mind to find a solution through whatever destructive means you want to. And with this Folkrace DLC, it basically turns it into a racing game where most of the races are comprised of either three different types. A regular race, a lap race, elimination race. So where after a certain amount of time, the person in last place is knocked out, and so on and so forth until there's only one person remaining, and a destruction derby type race. You would think, given that the game is so destruction based, that the destruction derby type race would be the best. It's actually maybe the worst because those races are short and not super exciting. There are moments to be exciting because some of them will have these giant wood chipper type machines and stuff where you can really wreak havoc. But overall, they're so short that they're kind of dull. And I would say that's true of most destruction derby modes in games of this nature. It's fun for that first 5 minutes where you're smashing into each other and you're looking at all the destruction and you're thinking, this is awesome. Look at the way these cars are falling apart. And then you immediately realize this is already beyond repetitive. This is boring. We're just driving into each other. Where is the fun in this? And so the actual fun in something like Reckless, was it? It's just fun to see. It's fun to then go back and just say, okay, forget all the stuff that's focused on the destruction element. Let's just do regular races and have the destruction element be a fun little wrinkle on traditional racing. And that's what you get in this Folkrace DLC. The racing is solid. The car driving is solid. It's not by any means a great racing game from a gameplay standpoint, but the way the environment is destructible, the way the courses are laid out and have elements of the environment affecting you, trains coming by, giant crop muncher machines, I don't know what they're called, in your way, hitting you and stuff like that. It makes the racing feel a little bit unique. But in addition to the racing, because you were gaining money to eventually purchase upgrades and stuff like that, you need to complete races to earn more stars so that more things will be unlocked for you to purchase. But as a way to get more money, in addition to racing, they still have the heist element, so you can get a little bit of that while doing it. So you'll have these little jobs that you can complete to earn money that you will eventually use to purchase new vehicles, upgrade vehicles, and so on. And that's a nice little thing, a way of adding some of the more traditional Teardown gameplay to this DLC. Because the DLC, I like the DLC in that it's something completely different, as opposed to just here are more regular single player missions. Here's basically what if Teardown was a racing game. I don't know what the other DLCs are like, but I like saying we've created this game with this incredible destruction system in it. What if we threw that in a different genre? Yes, please, because I love destruction in games. I wish it existed in more games. And it sucks that they don't. But at some point, I would like to go back to Teardown proper and do a real attack the backlog for it. Because I would let you do that. But the missions and stuff that you get along with the racing are things like collecting these vending machines and then taking them to a giant shredder at the construction site, which I didn't read the fine print on that one at first and tried destroying them in other ways and was so confused how and why these vending machines were inherently indestructible. I tried shooting them with my shotgun. I tried smashing them with my sledgehammer. I tried lighting them on fire. I tried dragging all of them to the gas station near one of the pumps and then exploding the pump and Everything else was destroyed, but those vending machines just were pristine. And I couldn't understand it. And then to really fine print, you gotta take these to this shredder and destroy them that way. And then I said, and so I did that. And then there was one that was kind of paperboy-esque where I had to deliver packages to 6 or 5 locations in a time limit. So I had to figure out the best way of doing that. Nothing too crazy, but enjoyable. This is an enjoyable DLC if you already have Teardown. Next is Lords of Exile, which is a Castlevania 1 on NES like. It is a retro game in that vein, and that is both its strength and its weakness. As mustache hairs continue to go up into my nose, maybe I need to do a bit of trimming. I don't know, but I don't think a trim shouldn't affect that. But I played through the first 2 areas in Lords of Exile, completed the 2 boss fights, and it's an adequate game that is trying to be Castlevania 1 in so many ways. The look of your character, the movement, the animations, the vibe, the look of the world. It is so Castlevania 1 that it is impossible to not think of and compare it to Castlevania 1. And as good as Lords of Exile is, it's well made. It feels pretty good for the most part. It's a lot easier, but it's not Castlevania 1. The music in Lords of Exile, it's not bad. It's not bad. But is it Castlevania? Fuck no. That's one of the best soundtracks of all time, that first game. Love it. Are the levels fun to explore? They're okay, but they're not super challenging. And Castlevania 1 could be overly challenging and cheap, but this feels a little bit too far on the let's make it a bit easier side. The bosses are easy. The game's really forgiving. As you complete areas, you gain new abilities, like having your sword slash be a longer distance, and then after the second area, you get a double jump, which makes platforming a lot easier and a lot more forgiving, where you don't have to worry as much about getting hit and then falling into the water and dying like you do in a Castlevania game. So the real issue is just the fact that it's so Castlevania-like and doesn't really bring, at least in those first 2 areas, I didn't get anything particularly new or special or unique that this was bringing to the table. It just felt like, hey, we really like Castlevania. We love those original ones specifically. We love Castlevania 1 extra specifically. So what if we just made another one of those? Sound good? I guess. But it's not that exciting for that reason. And again, it's impossible, for me at least, to not compare it and think of that inspiration. And it's I would just rather go play Castlevania. I would rather, because I beat Castlevania, but I used save states to do it. I would rather practice that to get through it the real way than play this, because I don't see what I'm getting out of this. If the music was better, again, music is pretty good, but it's not Castlevania good. If it was Castlevania good, I'd be like, fuck, I need to hear what the next area's soundtrack is, because this shit slaps, as the kids say. But it's just a well-made Castlevania that I like, but not enough to be super pumped to play any more of it. It's a solid 7. This means Warp is an Overcooked-like, where you are on a spaceship, having to worry about your various equipment and battling other ships. So you have a few turrets on your ship. You'll fight them and get into battles where you are destroying them, repairing your ship as the battle is going along. And you can play it solo or with other people. If you're playing solo, eventually you will get AI crew members who will join and help you repair and fire your weapons and so on. You can give them specific orders, so you can tell them, just focus on these machines, just do this, and don't do these other actions, which is a nice, simple way of utilizing the help. There are difficulty levels that makes playing it solo more viable. The interesting thing about it is that, yes, you have this gameplay where you're running around your little ship, repairing things, and attacking other ships as you're playing through the game. But the way it's structured is like a lot of roguelikes and roguelites, where you are, instead of having this overworld map and then following branching paths, you're in a more open little overworld space thing, and you'll be moving from square to square with icons on them that indicate whether it's a new crew member you can bring on, a battle, a random encounter type of situation, maybe some treasure, and so on. And this structure adds a lot of freshness to the Overcooked co-op, hectic, crazy genre, whatever we call these, that I really, really like. I wish the game wasn't as ugly as it is. It looks like a early gen Xbox Live Arcade game. It has thick outlines for everything, and visually it reminds me a lot of the game that came to mind was Cloning Clyde, if y'all remember that game at all. It's ugly. It looks old, it looks ugly. I wish it looked better. But the structure makes it the first. I've had some decent experience in the solo space with these games, but this is the first time I played a game like this and thought, I like this and I want to keep playing this. I played it on the normal difficulty setting and got through the first area and then died in the second. And as with these games, you're unlocking new things as you complete runs. So now I have access to some new turrets that I can utilize in the next run, and so on. But I had fun with it. It's pretty simple. You're going around doing these things, and when you're in battles, it's just fire your weapon, and usually I focus on firing my weapons at the other ship's weapons right off the bat to take away their offensive abilities, and then I let one of my AI teammates do whatever the hell they want, firing their weapon, and then I focus on mine, and I just continuously keep the enemy from having its offensive capabilities, unless they have a lot of turrets, and I'm fucked that way. But I enjoy the structure of This Means Warp, and it's a game of this nature that I really wish I had someone to play with, because I think it would be fun to go on this adventure, more so than just doing a level and then moving on to another level. Having it feel more continuous is a nice twist that maybe more games like this have done, but this is my first time experiencing an Overcooked like that does it this way. That is This Means Warp. Next, we have Devil Inside Us, Roots of Evil, another game where you're playing as a priest. And you have exorcism mechanic, but it's poorly translated, so the story lost me every time I noticed these little errors. And I think right at the start it says, this is not a one-to-one translation, but it's also not a perfectly accurate grammatically translation. Which I look at these kind of things and I think, are y'all just using Google Translate? Is there not someone you could pay a little bit of money to take that Google Translate and just clean it up? Because it does become frustrating when you play games like this that are made by foreign companies where English is clearly not the first language. And those errors in the translation become a distraction for someone like me, at least. And I wish there was... I just wish it wasn't an issue. I would almost want to say, hey, anyone out there, I have a degree in writing. I know it may not sound like it. I come across as pretty stupid. I know, because I am pretty stupid. But I do have a degree in writing. So, and I worked hard to get that writing because I'm a little bit dyslexic and I have reading comprehension issues. Don't know what I was thinking when I did that. I especially don't know what the one teacher was thinking when they had me tutor for a semester. What the hell is wrong with you? But, you know, you need a little help? I'll help. I'll help. I'll clean up your mess. But issues with the story and translation aside, the game itself was pretty whatever, and I stopped playing at a point where I did not know what to do next. I entered a bedroom. I think the priest dude, my character, said, "Oh, I could use some rest, or there's a bed there. I could sleep in that." And then I hit the activate button on the bed and it said, this is not the time to sleep. And I was like, fuck, all right. Well, that door's locked. I don't know where to. I've explored all this house, I'm pretty sure, and there's nothing left for me to do. I know there's a achievement for getting the shotgun, and there's a shotgun on this wall, but I can't grab it now. What am I supposed to do? But a lot of the game involved going around. So all I experienced so far was being at this house in 1984, and then after completing that part, it transported me to now, or maybe a little bit in the past. It might be like 2020 or something, but it transported me significantly, or maybe even 2000, whatever it was. It transported me some point in the future. I'm returning to this base because something new was going on there, or another potential tragedy. And what you're doing is going around these environments, doing a bit of puzzle solving, exploring the area, and then you'll come across things that need to be exercised. And then you just hold up your cross and exercise them. And then you move on. And then maybe a ghostly figure will be there coming after you, and you exercise them. It's just another one of these. Not super scary. Not super atmospheric. Maybe gets there at some point, but going through the house the first time, some cheap jump scares, but overall, as someone who's a big baby with games like this, I wasn't feeling a lot of tension. So that's that. And then Spellcats Auto Card Tactics is an auto battler, whatever you call these games. I think this might be the first of its kind I've ever played. Is that what is it? Are battle chess games also auto battlers or something? Or this is a game where you draft your deck, and then when you've completed drafting your deck, which happens at each battle, you then watch it play out on its own, where
The order you place it in is very important, because the card on the farmost left will be the first card that starts in the battle and move to the right. So you will have your card, and then your opponent will have their cards in their order, and then they fight against each other. So they'll hit each other, do however much damage the card does. If they have any kind of defensive abilities, maybe they have spikes that do some damage, some extra damage. Maybe they have a shield and stuff of that nature. There could be fire abilities, ice abilities, and the way you create your deck, build your deck, you can do a lot of combos so that things work together to make extra powerful decks that become kind of crazy and ridiculous. I really like the look of the game. I enjoy the gameplay once I kind of got a grasp of it. It's structured again like a rogue-like, where you have this is more so overworld, these lines of branching paths, very much so like a Slay the Spire or any game like that, where you start off and then you're following different paths that will take you to battles or treasures or campsites to heal or stores. I don't know if I ran into any stores, but stuff of that nature, until you eventually reach the end and a boss, and then you fight the boss and you move on. The bosses seemed especially easy, but I like the nature of building your deck and finding and creating a deck that really works well together, so that I had a shield card that I would build up its strength with cards ahead of it that would buff it as they died. And then I had a card in my deck that I upgraded so that it would make it that any card with shield in the description did 3 times the damage. So my shield card could do 33 damage every attack. That's pretty powerful. I had a card that I had and upgraded so that every time it took damage, it gained a certain amount of life back, which made it indestructible depending on the enemy's strength and how they built their deck. So I had cases where that one card just kept it couldn't be killed because the enemy's deck didn't have cards strong enough to do more damage than it would get back every attack. And the way you upgrade your cards is that when you have you have your drafting phase, and you have a certain amount of mana that you can use to spend on cards, and to re-roll what you have available costs 1 mana, and then you can sell cards as well to get a little bit back in this drafting phase. But when you draft 3 of the same kind, they'll combine and give you an upgraded version, which means in some cases you'll have to, when you've filled out your deck, you'll have to sell cards that maybe are beneficial to you, but you need that slot to add the 3rd card to create the new combined upgraded version. And that's a fun dynamic. I enjoy it. The one issue I have with the game is that I don't think it's particularly good at explaining itself. The tutorial is a bit of a joke, and there are even things in it that seem unclear and maybe broken and incomplete. But at its core, I like the idea. I like the vibe. I love the look of it. And I would like to play more and learn through play. I also think I maybe like these type of auto battlers, which isn't it kind of the way I think that Unicorn Overlord works, where it's kind of a tactics then auto battler setup. I'm not sure. The way I've heard people talk about it makes it sound like it's somewhere in that space, and that sounds very interesting to me. And I'm excited to play that game at some point. But yeah, that's Spellcats Auto Card Tactics, and that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Marcus Nez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. For your support at the all-you-can-oatmeal tier, if you so choose, you can get access to a monthly Q&A, fancy schmancy Discord role, the Cool Kids Club private channel, approved YouTube user status, whatever, and other goodies as well. But also there are other tiers as well. Or if you just want to support me, you can go there. Again, patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day, a lovely rest of your week, and a wonderful weekend. But for now, adios. Arrivederci. Bye bye.
It's go time. Go daddy. It's go time. Go daddy.